Oh, it's story time, baby. Uh, Once upon a time, there was a little guy. His name was Marcus. His name was Marcus. And one day, he was going to school because he's go to school. He's a sophomore, and he's very sexy. Yes, and everyone thinks he's sexy. And whenever he goes to school, all the ladies are like, "Oh my god, Marcus is so sexy." Because he is. And then Marcus has friends because he's sexy and everyone loves him. And he loves him. He's so fucking cool. He has hair and legs. Things only sexy people have. You know, the usual. And one time, he was driving down the road. Yep, he was driving in his Lamborghini. Yes, his red Lamborghini he was driving. And then he got lost. And he didn't know where he was or where to go. Because he was lost. And he didn't know where to go. And then he went somewhere. But he didn't know where he was. And then he found a cliff and he almost drove off of it, but then he was like, "Oh, that's a cliff, oh my god." And so he got out of his car and he looked down the cliff and there was a bunch of snakes crawling up the cliff, so he ran away, he ran so far, but the way he was running was like a lot of forest, it was a thick ass forest, so he was running through the forest. I don't know how he drove his car past the forest, but it happened, okay? He's just that sexy. He was running through the forest because he didn't want to get eaten by snakes. But he looked behind him and there were no snakes. Yeah. So he was walking in the forest and he thought about going back to his car, but he didn't for some reason. And he started thinking about creepers and how sexy they are. And he's like, "Damn, I would fuck a creeper." Anyway, he kept walking and he ran into a cottage. He looked at the cottage. He went inside of it. It was empty. So he was chilling. He was chilling in the cottage. Okay. He was chilling in the cottage. But there was like a nice cozy chair in there and whatnot. So that's what was happening. There was a cozy chair in the cottage and he was sitting in it. And then there was a knock on the door, and he was like, "Oh god, maybe I'm in someone's cottage and I'm not supposed to be." So he opened the door, and the person was like, "Oh my god, there's someone in my cottage," but they were also like, "Oh, they're sexy." And Marcus was like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know this was somebody's cottage." And then the person was like, "It's okay. You can stay for dinner." And then Marcus was like, "Cool." Because he was hungry. Yeah, hungry. So the person went to the kitchen and made dinner, and Marcus was just chilling, and the person was like, "What's your name?" And Marcus was like, "Marcus." And then Marcus was like, "What's your name?" And the person was like, "Fuck, hold on." The person said, "Fuck, oh, their name is Hands." Okay, their name is Hands, and they said, "Hands." And Marcus was like, "That's a weird ass name, but okay." And then Hands was like, "I know. Don't make fun of me." And then Marcus was like, "Sorry. I wasn't trying to make fun of you. I actually think that's a really cool and unique name." And then Hans was like, party rockers in the house tonight. And then Marcus was like, it's party rock is. And then they kissed. And then they stopped kissing. And then Hans was like, oh my god, dinner's ready. So then they sat down on the floor and ate dinner. Because there is no table. It's a cottage. There's not that much space. And they were eating on the floor. And then Hans was like, how did you get here? And then Marcus was like, I was driving. And then I got lost. And then Hans was like, haha, that's funny. And then they finished their dinner. And then Marcus looked outside and it was starting to get dark. So he looked towards Hans and he was like, hey, I don't know if I'll be able to make it back because it's dark and I'll get lost again. And then Hans was like, good. Stay with me, Marcus. I need you. So Marcus did do that. He stayed. He was chilling. He was like, I'm sexy. And they didn't go to bed yet because it was just starting to get dark. So it was like, it was like 7 o'clock. And they were just chilling. And they were talking. And they were talking about creepers and whether they have a vagina or a dick. Marcus thinks they have a vagina. Because they do. But you'll never know. You'll never know. And then Marcus was like, remember when we did that whole party rock thing? What was that? And then Hans was like, oh, I don't know. It just kind of happened. It wasn't, I'm sorry. And then Marcus was like, oh my god, it's okay. I didn't mean it as a bad thing. I was just wondering. And then Hans was like, And then they kissed. And then they were kissing. And then they stopped. And then they went to sleep on the floor. And then they woke up. And then Marcus was like, it's just about time for me to leave. And then Hans was like, will I ever see you again? And then Marcus was like, yeah, sure, dude, give me your phone number. And then Hans was like, I don't have a phone. And then Marcus got sad. And he was like, well, I wouldn't know how to find you again. Why don't you have a phone? And then Hans was like, because. And Marcus said, okay. Oh, well, bye. And then he left. And he went to go find his car and he found it. And then he drove back. And then he went to school. And they're like, oh my god, Marcus, why weren't you at school yesterday? And he was like, bro, I was just taking a drive. I was gonna come back. And then they were like, okay. And then this girl came up to him, and she was sexy, and she was blonde or something. I don't know. She was short, was sexy, big titties. And she was like, hey, Marcus. And he was like, yeah. And then she was like, do you want to go out with me? And then Marcus was like, I don't know who you are. Because he didn't. This is the first time he's ever seen this girl. And then she ran away crying. And then later on during lunchtime, that girl's friends came up to him and was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then he was like, what did I do? I'm just over here being sexy. I don't think I did anything wrong. And then the girls were like, oh my god, you rejected our friend. And he was like, I literally didn't know her. What the fuck else was I supposed to do? And then they were like, date her. And then he was like, oh, fine, whatever. I mean, that's fine. And so the girl came over and was like, oh my god, we're dating now. And then Marcus was like, yeah. And then he was like, yo, what's your name? And then she was like, oh fuck, hold on. Tina. Yeah. And then Marcus was like, hi, Christina. You can sit down at my lunch table. And so she sat down with Marcus and the boys. And all the boys were like, wow, Marcus, You got a girlfriend, that's nice. Uh, fucking banging, fucking, yeah. And then Marcus was like, oh my god, guys, try to be a little mature around the lady. And then the lady was like, it's okay. You don't have to. Fuck. I forgot what was happening. Anyway, so it was after school now, and Marcus was with Christina, and Christina was like, we should exchange numbers. And the Marcus was like, yeah, I think that's what people who are dating do. So they did that, and then they parted their ways. And Marcus drove home in his red Lamborghini, and he was home. And his mom was like, oh my god, Marcus, welcome home. And he was like, thanks, Mom. And then his mom was like, I am your mom. And then Marcus said, yes, you are. Goodbye. And then he left and he went to his room. And then, uh, and then he, fuck. He had a dog. There was a dog in his room. It was a very cute dog. It was small and tiny and cute. And it was fluffy. And it was hanging out. And then Marcus was like, that is a dog. And then the dog was like, woof. And he's like, oh my god, they're so cute. So he was looking at the dog. And then he was like, come here, Enderman. He named his dog Enderman. And then Enderman was like, a woof, woof, a woo. And then he came over and then he sat on his lap because Marcus is sitting down now. And then Enderman was like, I'm baby. And then Marcus was like, oh, you are baby, a woo. And then he took a picture with his dog and sent it to Christina. And then Christina was like, what the fuck is that? And Marcus was like, haha, that's just Enderman. And then Christina was like, you have a dog? And he was like, yes, is there a problem? And then she said, I really thought this was gonna work. Fuck. I knew I should have looked into it more. I can't believe you have a dog, Marcus. And Marcus was like, I don't understand the problem. Do you not like dogs? And then Christina was like, no, I don't like them. I love them. And he was like, then what's the issue? And she was like, I love dogs so much that I have a compulsion to kill them every time I see one. I've killed 17 dogs throughout my years. And I don't want to hurt Enderman. I don't think this is gonna work out. We shouldn't see each other anymore. I'm sorry, Marcus, we have to break up, she said through text in that dramatic voice. And then Marcus was like, ah, shit, well, okay, and then he blocked her. That was the end of Christina. And then, fuck, you know what? Marcus really misses Hands, but he knows he'll never be able to see Hands again. Because Hands lives in the middle of the forest, and he doesn't even know where that is. Where is the forest? Where is the middle of it? Where was that cottage? Did that even exist? Did it happen? Is Hands real? Is Hands just a figment of his imagination? He laid there in bed, thinking, crying about Hands. And then Enderman was like, woof. And then he was like, oh, you're so cute, Enderman. And he was still chilling there and he was crying. And then he opened up his phone and he was texting the boys. And they had a sick group chat on Discord or something because they're epic gamers. And then he was like, Christina broke up with me, guys. And they were like, oh man, that sucks. Because Marcus is a loser virgin, but nobody knows that. Everyone thinks he fucks on the daily because he's so sexy. So he's never told anyone that he's a loser virgin and has never had a girlfriend. But they all just assume that he has. So he's not gonna correct them. Anyway, he was texting the boys, and the boys were like, do you want to, do you want to smoke weed or something? Get over your girl? And Marcus was like, sure, I'll do that. And then he went, and then they went to one of their houses. No, they didn't. They went, there's 7-Eleven behind it. You can't, fuck. Okay, they were behind 7-Eleven. There was 5 boys, including Marcus, and all of them were like, "Oh my god, this is so sad." Alexa played. Fuck. It's not funny. Okay. They were hanging out. There is no Alexa. Alexa isn't real. They were just chilling, smoking weed. And then the boys were like, "Hey man, you know what's always gotten me over a girl breaking up with me?" And then Marcus was like, "What?" And then the boy was like, "An orgy with my bros." And then Marcus was like, "Well, I've never heard of that before, but I'm not exactly opposed to it. I mean, it's just a bro thing." And all the boys were like, sure, let's do it. But they were like, "We are still in behind 7-Eleven." So they went to Marcus's house, and Marcus's mom was like, "Hi, boys." And then the boys were like, "Hi, Marcus's mom." And then they went to his room, and then they fucked. And then they were done. And then Marcus was like, "Wow, Lamau lost my virginity." But he didn't say that out loud, because he doesn't want them to know. And he was just chilling, and he was thinking, that was good. I really like my boys. They always have my back. And then the boys were like, "This is the best breakup orgy we have ever had." And then they kissed, all of them at once. And then Marcus ripped his face off to reveal he's actually a robot and a secret agent for the FBI. And then all the boys were like, "Oh no." And then Marcus was like, "God, caught you, you're being gay, that's illegal." And then they were like, "It's not gay, it's just a bro thing." And then Marcus was like, "Oh." And then all the boys were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe we really thought you were our friend, but this whole time you were just a robot, a feelingless robot. Fuck you." And then they started throwing shit at him. And one of them threw a lamp, the other one threw a pillow, and the other one threw a shoe or something. And then Marcus was like, "No, no, please." And then he ran out. And then Marcus's mom was like, "What the fuck?" And then Marcus ran, and he kept running, and he ran into the forest, and he kept running. And he was running, and then he bumped into something. It was the cottage. Hans's cottage? He was filled with joy. He went to the door. He knocked on it, hoping, praying that Hans would answer. Lo and behold, Hans opened the door. They shared an embrace. And then Hans was like, "Yo, dog, what happened to your face?" And Marcus was like, "I am a robot." And then Hans was like, "It's okay, I love you just the same." And then they kiss. And then they stopped. And then they had sex. And then Marcus, after they had sex, and then they were done, and then Marcus was like, "I'm sorry, Hans, but you have to die now." And then Hans was like, "Alright, if it's by your hand, Marcus, I'll allow it." And then Marcus took his hand and snapped Hans's neck. And then Hans was lying there dead on the floor because they were fucking on the floor. And then Marcus sat there and he cried robot tears and he was like, "I loved him. Why did I kill him?" He didn't have to. He was just like, "Guess he has to die now, but whatever." Now Marcus is sad. And he lie there in front of Hans's dead, cold, lifeless body for like 2 hours sobbing, and then he left the cottage because he couldn't bear the sadness anymore. And he started walking, and he kept walking, and he reached that cliff from before. He looked down. There were snakes, and he thought, So be it. Snakes, take me away. They obeyed. The snakes formed a fucking colony. They all went together to form one big snake platform. And Marcus lay down on it, staring at the sky. And then the snakes carried him away into the air. They were flying snakes, and they lifted him up and up until they were on the clouds. And the snakes let him down, and he said, "Thank you, snakes." And then Marcus took his first step onto the clouds, and he was like, "It's perfect." And Marcus was so filled with content, joy. He thought, this is it. Because it was. He's dead. So he kept walking on the clouds, and then he and then he saw people, and he was like, this is where I'm meant to be. And they all looked at him, and they were like, oh God, what the fuck is that? And then he was like, what? What's wrong? And then somebody was like, no, dude, like, what's with your face? And then he remembered he took his face off earlier in front of the boys, and he was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would disturb you so much. And then God spoke, and he was like, guys, shut the fuck up. And they were like, sorry, God, our bad. And then Marcus was like, God, thank you for letting me be in heaven. And God was like, nah, man, you aren't supposed to be here. The snakes were just like about to send you to heaven. And then he was like, oh, really? Well, thanks, snakes. And the snakes were still sitting there, and they were like, you're welcome, Marcus. We love you. And then Marcus blew a kiss to the snakes, and the snakes were like, ow, ow. And then Marcus kept walking. And then he got to God, and God was like big and tall, and God was like, yo, what up, Marcus? And then Marcus was like, hi. And then Marcus was like, are you gonna send me to hell? Because that's where I was supposed to go. And then God was like, nah, I'm fucking lazy. I don't want to move. Fuck it. And then everyone else was like, I don't think a robot should be in heaven. And then God was like, it's whatever. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. He's just a guy. You guys are being fucking racist. And then he damned everyone to hell except Marcus. So now Marcus is the only person in heaven along with God. And then he went to God's toe, and he kissed God's toe. And then God was like, oh, Marcus, what are you doing? And Marcus was like, God, I don't know if anyone has ever told you this, but your beard is incredibly sexy. And then God exploded. The end.